Andrew, good to see you again. Who are you? What does your company do? And what's the problem that you solve?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So the company I run is Avenue Capital. We're an AI investment analytics platform working across public, but primarily private markets. And the problems we're really solving for people is those time-consuming, occasionally inaccurate parts of the investment process. It's very time-consuming for people, but also it's sort of hidden with speed bumps all the way through from errant data, maybe biased conclusions. So we're really looking to help resolve those issues for investors sort of globally and throughout the process.
Nice. Okay. What made you start this company? Or I guess, yeah, what's the backstory?
Yeah, so I had a background working in an investment bank, building financial models, and involved in these really large investment deals, which was pretty exciting when you first come out of university, and you definitely learn a lot. And as part of that process, I definitely learned that there was quite a few sort of pitfalls in the process in terms of how long it takes, and therefore you end up making shortcuts. You end up sort of doing back of the envelope calculation. You make decisions maybe before you have the information, and those things then just puts you in a slightly weaker position. Maybe you don't make the right decision, or maybe it's not as good a decision as you would have made if you had all the information. And so the thought process really was, if we were able to utilize machine learning and AI to accelerate the process, then we can get to having all the information a lot faster and therefore facilitate a better decision when the time comes.
Nice. Okay. So you were using this similar approach internally before in businesses that you worked with. Is that was that the first like,
Yeah, definitely
sign of the opportunity?
incrementally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's always, I think for a lot of us anywhere, it's always about making those sort of, maybe not minor, but marginal improvements. What is slowing us down? What could we do better at any point? And then looking to solve that problem. I've obviously been involved in AI for quite a while, I suppose, compared to many people. But at the same time, really, it's sort of automation and technology tool, and should be used to solve a particular problem. And if AI is not the right thing for that particular problem, then we should do something else. But ultimately, it's about solutions for the biggest or most challenging problems. Because if we can solve them, then we get to a better.
And how long have you been out on your own and doing this as a business?
Yeah, so we founded the company in early 2021, but I've been building sort of machine learning financial models from 2018 or earlier. So it's something that we've been doing for a long time in sort of understanding and developing the space, particularly as where AI relates to financial analytics. We've obviously seen so much development in the large language models and how it relates to text and elements, sort of data augmentation and how we handle different things, but particularly as it relates to that more numerical element that is so, drives so much of financial markets. That's something that we've been sort of continuously just iterating through and developing both our own systems and using others where appropriate, or combining those two approaches. It's always about finding the best, and maybe if you can't find the right solution, you build your own, and then working with clients to see what the next challenge is that they're facing.
Yeah. Okay. So 2021, when did you then have that first like repeatable sales motion? Like when did you get your first clients? When and how did that work?
So we started to get our first clients probably later in 2021, but the company's continued to go through an evolution as our technology's developed and probably tackled more problems or been able to tackle problems better. So there's been a sort of consistent evolution in that. We probably haven't had a repeatable sales process until this year. And we kind of worked on different challenges with specific clients and then developed a technology. And as we entered this year, we had much more of a platform that we could sell in a repeatable format that was inherently dynamic, and therefore we tackle different problems depending on what the client was experiencing and how they wanted to use the technology. And so that's probably where we've really started to have the thought process, the business plan, and how to build out a repeatable sales process as something that we're always looking at now is where to make changes and where to make tweaks. We are by no means perfect in how we do anything. And also, I think even if we get to the point where we're very efficient, the market will change, people's perceptions will change, our product will change. And so there'll be a sort of endless process to revising how we sell and who we sell to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Would you say that it's been very like product led growth, product led selling. So because you can tweak and iterate the product as you work with people in different use cases. Is that been the scenario
Yeah,
so far?
I think so, definitely. Because what we're doing is really embedded within such an important part of an investment decision-making process, which often may attract a large amount of capital. The need for our clients to have trust in what we do and confidence that there's a repeatable success in the technology is incredibly important. So we started from developing it basically, as you say, product-led approach, and we're probably at the point this year where that is evolving. It won't go away entirely because of that need of trust and development, and it's a sort of never-ending goal to improve. But it certainly has adjusted a little bit given where the product is now versus where it was maybe back in 2022.
Yeah. And is there skepticism with your ideal customer, like moving on to a new way of working on deals? Is there skepticism? Is that something that you have to overcome?
When we first started talking to people in 2021, was a massive amount of skepticism. I'd say the majority were highly skeptical. ChatGPT coming out sort of shifted a little bit of at least the sort of general consensus, which was really just quite helpful for us. Because educating people can be time consuming and expensive, and you're still maybe not likely to get the deal. Whereas that sort of shifted people to say to themselves that AI generally could solve a lot of these problems that maybe they hadn't considered before. That process for us then has continued through where we definitely see the occasional person objecting to the use of AI, but more likely they've had a bad experience in using some of the more foundational models to tackle something really specific, and not getting the right data through and not conducting the right sort of methodology. And what we've evolved through is a process whereby people can see a much more clear differentiation in how we deliver the services and the AI that we've developed. And so that's been very helpful for people to be able to have a bit of a reset to utilize the technology for themselves. So creating that sort of clear differentiation in how people use it then allows them to actually see the differences that are more clear in the underlying models and system and methodology. Because inherently, if you ask a question of a system and it provides a response, at least high level, that seems like a similar thing to maybe alternatives. Whereas if you can disaggregate the pieces, then maybe it gives you a much clearer idea of where the differences are that really make it stand out. Because ultimately, it's those minor differences, particularly in an investment standpoint, add up to quite a big difference over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And when you're showing this to clients, are you doing demo, like an example? How and when you show the example, are they then like blown away, or do they kind of need to play with it first and see it in their own sandbox, I guess?
Yeah. So we definitely do conduct demos with clients at a very early part of the process. I think as a precursor to the demo, we do want to understand the investment process, the evaluation process, how clients are monitoring the deals that they've done first. And the reason being is that that will inform us maybe what elements of our platform are most helpful to them, because there is always going to be some variation systems that people already have where people feel the challenges are. People really enjoy doing a 2-3 week process of evaluating an investment, and that's what they love to do. That's not a problem that needs solving. Whereas if there's a challenge that maybe they get, maybe they're receiving 100 pitch decks and teasers from founders a month, and they can't look through all of them, we can offer a platform and a service that allows them to comb through and see what fits and what maybe has some more of the performance features, credentials, performance, etc., that they are looking for. And therefore we can sort of not necessarily purely filter out, but we can, score them on behalf of clients depending on their own metrics and all those sorts of things that then facilitates it. So it's ultimately we need to understand the problem. The challenge, I think, when it comes to working with investors is we kind of need to walk them through a path to get them to slightly self-identify the problems. It wouldn't work well. And we've had this challenge, and it's something that where we've got to now is a learned experience of us saying, you may have this problem. It doesn't really tend to land so much as getting them to explain their process and self-identify what those problems are. And then we can tailor our demo a little bit towards that particular. And once we've done so, we may well then add on, well, other clients that are in a similar space have faced this challenge. Would you, is that a problem that you experience as well? Would you like to see the features that relate to that? And they may well say yes at that point. But I think if we just dive into a demo and just show them, what we think is the coolest stuff. So it's really important that we're listening to the client's specific problems and being able to show that we had built features that tackle that specifically. We may well be able to then say, given that you're this type of client, you're in this sort of space, do you experience these sort of problems that we see with other clients of a similar ilk? And they may well respond positively to that, and we can show them those features as well. But it is important for us not to just bombard them with the features that maybe we think are the best, because that then comes across as if we know more about their business than they do, and they can be quite unforgiving if that's the way they're sort of receiving that. So it's important for us, like any sales process, there's methodology, there's sort of an approach that you've learned over time with experience, but also you do need to feel out the person at that point in time. Some people really just want you to pitch the product. They don't want to talk about themselves. Some people really want it to be tailored to them and make sure that you're listening to their particular business, and basically, an adaptation process that has to happen.
Okay. No, that makes complete sense. So has there been any like big mistakes on the growth or sales side that you made that you're like, this is potentially lost us some deals or taken us down the wrong path?
So maybe from a general point of view, we were very keen to give people access to trial our system for 2 weeks and kind of just get it out to anyone. But what we noticed when doing so is that people wouldn't actually log in the first place. What we've shifted to really is a methodology whereby we obviously provide them that demo, and it came back, slightly to a previous question of yours in terms of providing people access. People do need to have access for a period of time to sort of get to play with it themselves, and also that what they will most likely do is use a previous deal that they've done and seen what the outputs that are being produced by the system are compared to the outputs that are produced by themselves and their team at the time, and see the sort of quality comparison, and are they comfortable and happy with what's being produced. And so as we do that, we put a couple of things in place. People sign up, people confirm understanding of terms of service, that there's meetings booked in place either as onboarding to their trial or as part of like a review process to get their feedback, to get their thoughts, to also then discuss them becoming a customer of ours going forward. So there's a couple of maybe almost points of friction, a couple of commitments that they're making on their side that just mean that when people are going through a trial, importantly, that meeting at the end is there, because it is not uncommon in a 2-week time span that we see people realize they have that meeting coming up and then use it basically flat out for a day and test all its features. So they have something, so they on a call with us can tell us that. Whereas if that meeting's not there, then they're busy people, they got other stuff going on, so it just doesn't happen. So we need to sort of define the period of time of when they have access, and also that there's going to be a meeting with us to go through their experience. And people do tend to feel like, well, we've given them access for 2 weeks. I owe them my feedback as a minimum, which is ultimately helpful for us. And also hopefully they're getting a good experience out of it, and then we can move forward. So it is ultimately better for everyone. We're not wasting anybody's time by sort of allowing it to last longer than it should.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And have you found that so obviously it increased the activation rate, but has it also increased the conversion rate of people going live onto the full product?
I think what we really see is, given the product quality question that people experience, once they're on the trial, that becomes a slightly independent item. That's really about how good is the product at solving their problem. So there is probably an element of sales process in terms of making sure we've identified what the problems are they're experiencing and showing them clearly how the system can solve that problem for them. But also then ultimately it's about their experience with the product without us being there.
Mm,
So we've made incremental improvements to make sure the platform is addressing people's problems, or, bugs or things do happen every now and then, making sure that that's happening. And also that, importantly, when they provide us feedback, either at the end of that trial or when they're customers with us, that we have a clear plan in place to address it. People are very, very responsive when it comes to them presenting a problem and us being able to, we're going to go and solve this for you in this sort of time span. It doesn't matter, doesn't need to be tomorrow necessarily, depending on what it is. It can be months down the road. But if we are demonstrating clearly that we are listening and want to make it better for them, then that is an intangible item that people at least maybe don't always pay more for, but certainly gives you much more inertia, reduces the inertia of clients looking to leave, right? It really maintains that customer loyalty, because they're not just paying for today's product, they're paying for what it will become down the road. And then they know to their mind that it will improve because we're putting in place the changes that they want to see, providing, of course, that the feedback we're receiving is understanding the problem they're having with the platform, not necessarily the change they want to,
mm,
seen be made. We can't drive a development pipeline based on the fact that they want a feature. It has to be, what is the problem that you're having, or what is the challenge that you're facing, not just on the platform, but away from us, that you would like us to help solve.
yeah, yeah, okay, okay. That makes complete sense. So I guess what's something that you've picked up along the way that maybe at the start you heard a lot of founders or CEOs talking about in the industry that um, about growth that you disagree with. So something that, yeah, say a belief about sales or growth that you disagree with in your
Yeah.
space.
We've definitely done a, broadly speaking, an approach that's maybe a little bit away from maybe the classic sales approach. I think people are always really encouraged to go for those individual high ticket clients. And what we've really found is, by going for maybe the marginally smaller, more agile, the firms that are accepting that they need to use technology in order to become more efficient or to try and grow themselves, are much more receptive. And therefore, we can keep that sales process to be really clear, have a high degree of velocity. We can reach out, have the demo call, set up the trial for, a few days to a week later, depending on people's schedules, do the 2 weeks, have the review, bring them on as a client in the next week or so. So we can really have it a month, 2 months end to end. And when you're speaking to some of those larger firms, as much as they may pay for an individual service with all the different add-ons and all the potential users, you may end up in a 9, 12 months or longer sales process, and you end up involved in some political conversations regarding, who's authority, who is the economic, if we're answering that sort of classic question, the sales process of who is the economic buyer. There might be 100 of them, there might be 12 of them, there might be in different departments. The possibility of different opinions is so high. And the thing we've really focused on, or as a learned experience got better at, is getting to that. If it's a no, getting to know as soon as possible. Right? Is this not a good fit? What is your opinion on it? Do you want to use this? Does it solve the problem for you? If any of those are no, fantastic. Let's not waste each other's time in any further capacity, because there's other people that do value what we're doing. So let's go and speak to them, rather than trying to convince you over the next 18 months that this is for you, and then it's still going to be probably a no anyway. So I think for us, it was quite clear in the conversations that we had that, by sheer volume and the ability to be so much quicker on the sales process, that not going for what may be deemed as the sort of biggest firms, and with size in the financial industry gets a certain amount of credibility, by not going for them, it was certainly a lot better for us in the sales process and continues to be.
Okay, and then when you're looking to get to that no as quick as possible, is there anything different that you started to do in conversations to get people to that decision, or is it purely because you've got the trial period and you've got that follow up, that stage, or yeah, or what's your thinking around getting to the no?
Yeah, so it's probably also slightly adjusting from myself. I think I don't come from a specifically a sales background. As much as I've always been speaking with clients, I'm not sort of designated account manager or try to convince them to become a new client. I'm sort of operating with an existing client, and so there's definitely some big markers in terms of us having the confidence to say we don't necessarily need your business. If it's a good fit, we'd love to work together. But if it's not a good fit for you, or likewise, if it's not a good fit for us, then that's absolutely fine. And so it's more that dynamic. And frankly, I think when you first started and you're not necessarily an actual salesperson, you kind of go with the approach of, you know, trying to convince everyone that they could be a client of yours, and those classic that you make, and instead sort of being upfront in terms of like how much we're prepared to pay for this. This is the price. Are you prepared to pay for that? Is this a budget that you would work with? Is this a big enough problem for you that you'd pay X to solve it? Sometimes people are going to be, usually they can maybe you're like, well, if it's not a yes, that's basically a no.
Mm,
Because otherwise it's not a good use of time. So let's leave it for later. We can put you on, our marketing list. So we come back, but get back to you at some point. But it's understanding that dynamic, and also a lot of it psychology as well. I think when you are confident in what you are selling and your attitude, I mean, you don't want to steer anywhere into arrogance, but you definitely want to have the confidence to say, this is a valuable service that we're doing, for the price we're going to charge you. If you don't want to, somebody else will. So, thanks for your time. Have a good day.
yeah, yeah, nice. No, I like it. Yeah, straightforward, it's giving them the easy out, and yeah, just if it's not if it's a maybe, it's more likely a no. So yeah, no, okay, cool. Let's go into a bit of a quick fire round. A book or podcast that's changed how you think.
I think I always end up going back to how to make friends and influence people. Just, simple, quick, adaptable little rules to bear in mind, just to always be on the right side of people, to always put your best foot forward in a way.
Yeah, okay. A favorite sales or founder tool.
But so from a tool, we've been trying lots of interesting and actually as people in the AI space. So we've tried a number from Jiva is what we're trying at the moment, which has been a little bit interesting to see. And they've got some interesting development pipelines. And so to see what they come out with and so how that applies to AI. And also me trying not to be guilty of, as we work in the AI space, not thinking that we could do a better job of building out an AI solution ourselves, which probably isn't true because this is not our expertise. So making sure we stick to our lane. Yeah, so it's been interesting to try to, yeah, I'll say that.
Okay, yeah, fine. And underrated go-to-market channel.
So there's definitely an element. I think hosting your own events
Mm,
is a little bit underrated because of the logistical or administrative task of doing so. But I think your return on investment is a lot higher. You probably end up being able, depending on the size of event, spending less than maybe you would spend to attend some of these really large events and things like that. So definitely an interesting one.
yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, good point. Yeah, okay. And then a founder or sales leader that you really admire.
I probably haven't found one individual one. I think I've probably taken bits and pieces from so many, probably tried to create my own version of it with what I think works and what doesn't. So many of the sales ones are maybe a little bit more B2C at times in their approach, and particularly with who we're pitching to and the credibility you need and the sort of no BS attitude at times. And sometimes those more structured approaches that do get sort of pitched by particular salespeople, I haven't always resonated with. I think probably because I'm not the same typical natural salesperson. So I end up finding myself looking to build upon elements of many. Not to say that I don't have great respect for so many individuals in the process, but I think it ends up being too many to count because there's probably 20 to 30 that I'm stealing little bits and pieces from.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Well, yeah, that's been great, Andrew. So yeah, thanks for coming on. Where should people reach out to? How can people connect with you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So if people are interested in learning more about us at alamerecapital.com, and if they want to speak to us, they can arrange a call through our website.
Perfect. Well, I'll put the links in the description. And yeah, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks so much.